Let's just keep walking. That's right, a lovely stroll on the moors. Tra-la-la-la-la. Isn't this fun?
Congrats on winning the 11-second club. I just want to say that I really like this piece. I like the style that you've chosen. It's a little bit more unique. And interestingly enough, I can see a lot of influence from a show such as Peanuts or some of the DreamWorks Captain Underpants stuff, which I'm a big fan of. I actually worked on Peanuts, and so I have a little bit of insight in there to a couple of things that I see you're doing that were in Peanuts borrowed from Charles Schulz. So I have some thoughts there. But the main note that I have for the critique that I'm about to do is you've chosen a very stylized approach. And so any notes that I give you, you could equally argue not to do them because a lot of what's working for you is the charm in the choices that you made on the stuff that is atypical. So I'm going to point out some things that I think may fit with this style just to keep it consistent across all areas. But I don't really want to comment too much on any necessarily animation principle things because that's really not the type of shot that it is, right? If I break it down into anything performance related first, that I think is worth talking about, and then get into this more sort of technical side of things that's less subjective. So the one performance related thing that I had was, as I watched it, I like this. I'm looking at the performance of character with the red antenna, and he looks kind of anxious.
Just keep walking.
All right, because he's sweating, obviously, and his eyebrows. I'm getting a lot from his eyebrows being, in and down, right? That signifies his anxiety.
Let's just keep walking.
And it's in the line as well. The other character feels like his attitude isn't quite is a little bit less anxious, a little bit more carefree. So when I come here and he's got the same brows, I did initially question, is it worth finding something slightly different for him? And I tried doing a draw over here, but I didn't find anything particularly that I thought worked better. But the note is, if I rub these eyebrows out, is it possible to give him a slightly different attitude? Because he's saying tra-la-la-la-la, right? And seems, unless it's meant to be entirely sarcastic, it feels like he should have something else. I did wonder if you wanted to put like this kind of concern look on his face, but then you kind of get to that later on here. After that, it'd give you less play, you wouldn't be going to a new place here if you did that. So I'm not sure if that's the answer. So maybe it's just something a little bit more neutral. So it just feels like he's not quite as anxious as the other guy. So here's my suggestion. It may take a little bit of fiddling around to find the right expression. What if you just ease off the and make it, not as slanted and therefore concerned, but also not as angry as the other guy, or anxious rather, angry eyes. Somewhere just in the middle, maybe get you enough of a difference. But that's my only performance note, really. I love everything else. The rest of the stuff I have is really just for execution. So if I break it down from shot to shot, I just flow in that way. I think first thing that I would comment on in this shot. Actually, yeah, let's talk about that first. In this shot, and kind of across it is, you've got this really nice sort of bounce to his nose. And it immediately made me question why there wasn't any on the antenna. So I would consider adding that, like a little bit of bounce on the antenna. So it would just be, you don't want it to be distracting from the rest of the character, but just a little bit of something overlap there, right? So that as he's going, the antenna's going. And then similar note. It feels like your character is on twos for the most part, but the hair is always on ones, which means you get these frames where the character's held, but the hair keeps moving. Now, that's one of those notes where maybe you did that on purpose, and that's totally fine. To give you context of what we did in Peanuts, well, actually, it was some animators did it one way and some did it the other way. So it may be something worth experimenting with to see. But you know, if you're this whole style that you've seen in other shows comes from trying to mimic the limited animation of these 1960s animations, right? In which they were trying to cut back on how much frames they had to draw. And so the idea was that if it was on limited like this, and limited frames, one frame would be held for 2 frames or 3 frames or however many frames. There wouldn't be a drawing in between. But in 3D, you get the software interpolating for you, so you get like this head on 2s, hair on 1s, and I would just consider whether you want the hair to only move when the body moves, like here. What you've got there, it gives you a nice overlap. But what you could also do, and this was another note at hand, is you could consider giving the same amount of overlap on the hair that you might want on the antenna that the nose has as well. Like when you come down here, I would say another approach could be, and it might just sit with the style more authentically. So, you know, okay, here. So this is one frame. Like one here, right? Put that in there. So we come down to this frame, but instead of having it take 2 frames to move down, have it move down with the head, but create a little bit of overlap in this area. I guess I'm just simple. Could be something simple like that, right? And that would, where did that go? Search. So that hair would be on the so that as the head comes down, you would see why it's, I don't know why that frame has become permanent across all drawings. But as your head comes down, the hair would come down immediately with it to the spot that it needs to be here. And then, oh man, I have to reload this. Hold on a sec. The player's weirded out on me. Create that drawing to One frame. All right, do I get the right frame? So small. This timeline got a function into it? No. Here we go. All right, so let's see. Sorry, I'm faffing around with this. So on this drawing, it's. Let me try one more time. If not, I just want it to kind of, I'm happy with it to just get rid of these lines actually. Yeah. Okay, so what here? This drawing is good. This drawing, I actually want to delete it. And move this one. No. So, okay, clear drawings. Let me try again. 1 second. We'll just get rid of it. But you probably understand what I'm getting at. Anyway, I just want to get it right. Okay. Good. Why is it not drawing? No. All right, we're back. Okay, so sorry for all that sucks in the world. Here. So I want to go from here. And then in this frame, what I want is that here over slightly full and this frame. Good. So what you get is a please work. Yeah, so you do full. Here comes down, overlaps. Next frame, it straightens up rather than being on every frame. Just something to consider. It's a little bit more consistent with the authenticity of where the style kind of originates from. And then the other thing I want to talk about in terms of that too is you're animating on frames where it holds, but then you're getting these motion blur things happening where there's no movement, but you're about to move, and by it, messes up the motion blur. So I would recommend not animating with motion blur so that you get nice clean, you'll get crisper changes, right? So that you won't get these blurs and then clear. And then we'll get blur, clear, blur, clear. You kind of don't notice it on the move, but I guarantee you if you get rid of those blur frames, it will feel crisper. The only trouble is I really like the blur that you get when you do this camera move there. So I wonder if it was me, I would be trying to get rid of the blur on those body parts, but maintaining this blur on the camera. So one option you could do is when you get to this frame, you render to this frame, no blur. And then the bit where you've got this nice blur on the camera and you whip round, render that with blur. Right, so you have a little chunk there with blur. And then continue without blur afterwards. And anytime that you want camera blur, just render that bit as a separate piece with blur off and the rest with it off. So these things are not really about animation, but they'll make it just feel a little bit more crisper, I think, the animation, but give it a tiny little bit more punch. And also, if anybody's stepping through, they'll see things like this. You'll go, what happened on that thread? Right, so that's the more technical part of this first. Another thing I wanted to mention was something I know about these eyes. I really like what you're doing with these type of eyes. So on Peanuts, we called this 6 9s because it's like a 6 and a 9. Actually, no, it's like a 6 would be like that, right? So go the wrong way. And 9. Oop, wrong one. So these are like classic Schultz things that he did in his comics. And kind of a design rule is that, as you see where I've drawn it, this tail that's coming around, it's kind of like it's as if you're imagining an eye, right? There's eye white and you've got the pupil in the eye, and that little tail is just signifying the part of the eye. And this sort of, it signifies white of the eye, right? So the way that you have it, it feels like the eye is going this way and that is going that way, right? And they're two separate pieces. It might be nice to design them in a way that sorry, let's say in that frame here, that you have that structure that I was drawing. The only difference is your eyes sort of bend that way, and I think that's fine. It's like slightly different, and it's your own thing. So you're not, stuck with it being exactly like the original. But to just borrow back from where it comes from, it might be nice to just connect them a little bit more, so that they feel like I haven't done a good job there, because it's supposed to feel like a tail that gets thinner. So that's my comment there, is just having those things feel like they flow out of the eye a little bit more. And so for that first shot, that's kind of all I have. There we go. Just there is bugging now. Yeah. All right, let's take that off. So here, this next shot, let's see what we see in this one. We're going to count it to when it gets out. Great, it's one shot. So a couple of things I see in here. Again, antennas. Is that something you want to do? Hair. Do you want to give it a little bit of life when he's moving? I see it moves as one solid unit up and down, but maybe there's a little bit of give just in the tips. Very subtle. A bit like what you have on the nose. Just for consistency. If his nose is moving that much, you'd expect the hair to move a bit, right? And the antenna is really a question of whether you want to do that, because you could argue they're made of solid material, or as I would have assumed, we got a little bit of give, so you might want to put a little bit on there. So other than that, I see when he's doing his walk, there's a beat where I feel like every now and then you're holding on these poses with the legs just a little bit too long. 2 frames is what I would probably expect. You can probably get away with 3 if you're suggesting low gravity. But when you get to some of these where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're holding that pose for 5 frames. It feels like you need a breakdown in the legs, because I feel them being static for a bit, right? So you could break it down, like one breakdown between those 2 pauses because it's 5 is quite long. And how long is this one? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 4. So you can kind of get away with 4. Which one it is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, just I think it might benefit from one breakdown of the in the walk through there. It just I'm painfully aware of sometimes these just stuck, not all the way through. It just feels like that, but there where I was pointing it out. When you get to here, it feels good, like frame 120-ish. So that's 5 frames as well. So you've got breakdowns on the head, but not on the legs, and I'm aware of that. So more breakdowns on the leg, basically. No. I really like how when he's jumping up here, you get the feeling of low gravity, and you've got so few frames where it's changing, and he's just sort of gliding through the air. I think that works great. My comment would be, is it worth? And again, I'm saying it like a question. Is it worth? Because there's no right and wrong answers when you choose to do something stylized. Because what you've done could be what you want, and that's the charm. But on a technical standpoint, I feel that this mouth also becomes a little bit static when he says tra-la-la, and I'm missing a little bit of la, something where it's opening and closes on the la. Just at the very end, I think. So I feel like we stay in this shape too long. And it could just be that you start smaller and allow it to grow. Have a breakdown where it gets bigger, so it starts smaller, gets bigger, just so we feel a little bit of motion on that mouth. And I mean, you can go a bit further, like just a tiny little bit, so it doesn't feel completely like it died. Yeah, because that's a lot of frames with nothing. You'd expect the mouse to kind of grow and then maybe start to come back just a little bit before we get to here. Or you could have it so that la opens and closes a little bit. Just a few more breakdowns. Nothing crazy, like one or two breakdowns in there just to stop it feeling completely locked, but nothing like to over animate it. And then what else have I seen here? There was a bit where you have this little squiggle in the middle of the mouth to signify the teeth, and then it just disappears without the shape of the mouth being too much. File that frame appearance. Okay, so here you have the squiggle in the mouth, which I love. I love this design, but then it just disappears, but the outside of the mouth kind of stays the same shape. So again, don't notice it so much on the runners by it, but when I'm stepping through, I'm thinking it might be a little bit stronger to signify why it went away. So this for me is, we're saying that you got teeth, right? And they're clenched. That's the idea. So if that line disappears, it's because either the mouth closed or in your case, because you don't have a black inside the mouth, maybe you're not seeing that little ridge because the teeth aren't pressed against each other anymore. So that would mean, do you want to just expand the mouth out a little bit at the same time it disappears, right? So that you end up with, I like, it disappeared because the mouth opened a little bit, rather than it just went nowhere.
Moors.
And then a couple of smaller little intersection-y things that do jump out even on the run, and around the shoulder area. I mean, I'm not too concerned about this one because you can just, sculpt that strap down very easily so that it doesn't go through. I don't really pay attention to that. But what I did notice was just, I think that's when it lands. No, it's when he puts his take. But where is it gone? There. So it gets a little bit confused in here. The main pose of the bag on his back looks great. And even this holds up to here, but then his chest goes through. This feels like I think this might be just a mistake. Okay? Or it could even just be motion blur messing up your pose, I don't know. But it feels like you got one frame where the body goes through the hands and then the hands catch up. So we can just go straight to this one. And again, that might be the same note that I was saying about everything moving on the same frame and not having some things moving on one frame and then other parts of the body moving on the next frame while the first parts that moved are static again, doing everything together. But it just creates a little bit of a kick in there. I really like this, how you break those 6 and 9s just coming down there. Just as a piece of information for you as well, in doing this type of show where you've got this style, one of the things that you're looking at in terms of the eye shapes is you imagine a mask still around. Let's get it on the board for see here. So it's going here. So this would be your mask, right? Your mask is kind of like this. So everything is fitting within that shape. You got the 2 eyes and the brows, right? And we're looking at that as your sort of eye mask. So when it changes, not when it changes. So if you're aware of that, then you might be wanting to do things like just shape that eyebrow a little bit up that way, then flatten these a little bit. Or no, actually that one's fine. You see how this one is angling kind of like that? You might choose to just rotate it a little bit so it's more like that, just so it fits with that mask shape that you're kind of imagining. Now when you get to here, not to change the shapes or anything, but just how to make them feel more tied together. So this is your eye. Again, if we put those little tail things in, a little bit more connected. And then we're imagining there's a mask here. Slightly different because you've got different expression, but it's going to be mostly kind of like that, right? It's going to be your mask. So in thinking about it like that, you get, do you want to put a little bit of a curve in there and a little bit of curve in there and a little bit of a tail there just to suggest that you're coming back down around that mask. Okay. And you're imagining that it's kind of enclosed in that shape. And just thinking about all your expressions with that in your mind. Obviously that one doesn't count because in profile doesn't kind of go that. But here, it's just like, what is your mask here? It's probably so just allowing that to fine tune the shapes that you get with the brows. And the bottoms of their eyes. Right? They get antennas. I think I mentioned that shot, right? All right, so let's get to the last one. You really see the blur here when it's getting whipping out, all right? Don't mind it on a bit there, but this frame here, that's quite extreme, right? This is one where I think the blur thing is starting unintentionally. All right, last shot. So a couple of things I thought here that could plus this are, and again, it looks great, right? If you left it as this, it's still successful, but antennas here, because it's more of a run, it really, and you've got the head sort of squashing and stretching. I like that a lot. You've got this head there, and it's changing shape, right? Squishy ball. Even more of an argument to do that with the antenna, because a head it's got a skull in it, right? So if in your world that solid skull can squish like this, surely the antenna would be able to as well. So I'm kind of missing that they don't do that. I really like what you're doing with the legs. I wouldn't touch that, and the body. And a lot of this shot is about the up and down of the TY, but maybe you can just put those arms out a little bit more in silhouette, so that we see they're a little bit too straight up. And it may mean stretching them a little bit, so we get the hands out away from the body, right? I see you kind of got that, but I don't read it immediately. So if you can just keep the same angle on those arms, but just maybe stretch them out a bit so that we see the hands away from the silhouette of the head. I think it'll add a little bit to the panic of the run. And then when he falls down, again, because we had that squash and stretch on the head already, just from running, I kind of miss it that when he falls, I don't expect this to squash a little, stretch a little bit more through there. Debatable whether you want to keep the stretch on there. I quite like how much it snaps down, actually. So imagine that it's there to there, which is what you probably have, right? That's good. But then I think it would maybe flatten out a little bit more and then come back to the shape. So you just get a little bit more like that, right? And you could even that squash the arms out, so it's kind of like an overshoot on the impact. And I've probably overdrawn that right to extreme. And similarly, when he gets up, it feels like I don't mind that the head squishes down, even though it probably wouldn't there. It kind of works. But as he comes up, I would expect more of drag on the head shape. Again, you can. Again, this would be a nice place to get those antenna bouncing. And that's kind of all that I have for you with this stuff. A lot of it is subjective as well, so you feel free to choose what doesn't fit with the style that you were going for. But I'm hoping that a lot of the stuff that I said about the structure of the mask, being on twos and whatnot, makes sense, and it's something that you take on as it's more of a draftsman of the shot rather than changing in the style of it. Yeah, really great stuff. Love it. And I hope some of that information was useful, helpful, and you can use it to kind of plus what's already there and working so well. So again, well done in the 11-second clip, and good luck in the future.